What if I told you that there's a language that has basically no first language speakers, that is the official language of several countries in Africa and several countries in Asia, and is known to 250 million people? What language is it? Well, find out on today's episode of Life's Potluck Buffet, where I'm going to talk about some languages that aren't first languages, but are really, really widely spoken second languages. And as always, we'll ask the cards for what they have to say. I'm John Paulus. You're listening to Life's Potluck Buffet, only on YouTube. If you've been enjoying Life's Potluck Buffet, please subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. If you have a Brave browser, you can now contribute basic attention tokens to Life's Potluck Buffet with John Paulus on YouTube. Thank you for your support, and thank you for listening. Have you had a chance to think about your answer for what language I'm talking about? Well, I'll tell you the answer. The answer is Al-Arabiya al-Fusha, something that we call in English modern standard Arabic. Now, in Arabic, Fusha, which means eloquent, is used to describe classical Arabic. I'm going to say as well. In English, we distinguish between modern standard Arabic and classical Arabic. But in Arabic, they're the same. They're thought of as the same language, just of different historical times. And that is because the language that is known today as modern standard Arabic is a language derived from written Arabic. And in the 19th century and early 20th century, the spread of a written form of the language in mass media and in other writing forms that was meant to communicate to a wide audience of Arabic language speakers. You see, the first language of Arabic speakers is almost never Fusha, because that is a language that must be learned and isn't generally spoken. There may be someone out there, or some people out there, whose parents taught them Fusha, spoke to them in a form of modern standard Arabic only, but it's unlikely. It's kind of like as if you were to speak to your children only in Latin and nothing else, and somehow that would be their first language. I mean, it's possible. I don't want to rule out the fact that there aren't a few first language speakers of Fusha, because, and I say that because, and I told this story a while ago, when I met the person who was the head of the Esperanto Museum in Vienna, Austria, she told me that her first language was Esperanto. Her father was close with the founders of the language and was a very early adopter of it, and spoke to her in Esperanto as a child. And for her, it is her heart language and her first language. And all the other languages she knows are second languages and third and fourth. So I'm not going, because of that, I'm not going to rule out the fact that there might be someone there who speaks Fusha as a first language, but it's not going to be more than a couple of people. Now, what does that mean for everything? Well, Al-Arabiya al-Fusha is used in contexts like I said, mass media. It has been since the days of the newspapers and journals of the 19th century. In the world where there are a lot of speakers of various Arabic languages. And I say various Arabic languages because these languages aren't dialects of Arabic. They are their own separate languages. Egyptian Arabic is its own language, and so are the other. And then, by the way, that's the one Arabic language that is spoken by the most first language speakers, and also has a very, very large number of second language speakers as well. So of the first language Arabic languages, Egyptian Arabic is the largest. And the thing about these various vernaculars is that they're not in general written languages or taught as written languages. And so when written language is taught, that's when we have the modern standard Arabic come in. And that's what gets taught to so many people in school, and it is what is used in various literary, mass media, religious, very importantly, religious contexts, and also in legislative and other governmental and political contexts. So modern standard Arabic is very important in many different ways, and is understood and written, and in some cases a form of it is spoken in those contexts I just talked about. For example, the Al Jazeera television, if you tune in, you're going to hear a version of modern standard Arabic that has that the television station seeks to kind of regularize as much as they can, so that their broadcast can reach a large number of speakers of Arabic languages and therefore be understood. So there's a standardization that goes on that you need to have when you're trying to reach 275 million people whose first language are related but not the same as the classical Arabic and the modern standard Arabic that develops in that continuum. And I say in that continuum because there is really no way to differentiate between when classical Arabic ended and modern standard Arabic began. Somewhere in the 19th century, this form of using this form of the Arabic language in writing to communicate things about everyday life, which meant that new words needed to be either borrowed or created so that you had a word for car, or nowadays a word for internet, or a word for a telephone. So either a word needs to be borrowed from another Arabic language, another non-Arabic language, or it needs to be created as a new Arabic word that represents that modern technology or a new idea. So, and that's what exactly what has happened. All three. There have been borrowings from various Arabic languages, borrowings from non-Arabic languages, and also creation of new words entirely in modern standard Arabic. I think that's pretty cool that there's a language that really no one has as a first language, that 250 million people have as a second language that they know, and that's so important to the world. That's really cool. There are other languages that are primarily secondary languages that are also up there in terms of numbers of speakers. And one that I want to highlight is called, in English, Nigerian Pidgin. And Nigerian Pidgin is even though it's called pidgin in English, it's not really a pidgin fully. And I say that because there are about 5 million first language speakers of what is known in Nigerian Pidgin as Naija or Naija, and which is a name for the language. And that means when you have first language speakers like that, that it means that it's a Creole, because pidgins aren't first languages by rule. That's kind of like the rule about pidgins, is that they're nobody learns them as a child, so to speak, in order to communicate with others. They're languages of convenience in places like the ports of South China, like Chinese business English, which is where we get the word pidgin from, is a pronunciation of business in southern Chinese language context. And so that the once you have a language that gets passed on and taught and regularized in a way that can be understood, then it becomes a Creole, and that is definitely the case for Nigerian Pidgin. In fact, you can go to BBC News in Nigerian Pidgin. It's bbc.com/pidgin. That's Pidgin. And on that website, you can read today's headlines. And if you're an English language speaker, if English is your first language, or even if it's your second language, you're going to be able to understand most of the things in the headlines. There are things that are going to be difficult to understand. There are a lot of loan words in Nigerian Pidgin from Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Portuguese. Interestingly enough, from Portuguese, the word sabe, which is one of the words that's used in that lingua franca, the sabir of the Mediterranean lingua franca, is also used in Nigerian Pidgin. I like to imagine the scenario where speakers of Nigerian Pidgin and speakers of Sabir, Pidgin language of the Mediterranean of a couple hundred years ago and more, if they could understand each other, if there's would be mutual understanding. It would be interesting to know. Nigerian Pidgin has a lot of English in it, though, so the Sabir was a language that was based more on non-English languages, so that's why it's easy to understand if you're an English speaker. But and you can learn the loanwords and the other elements of it, and then you could become fluent. Actually, if you're looking to become well versed in a language and you're an English language speaker, I recommend learning Nigerian Pidgin. It is a language you can learn. You'll learn some words in other languages as well because they're used frequently in Nigerian Pidgin. And you'll be able to understand and read and maybe even talk, if you practice with Nigerian Pidgin speakers, the language. So I think that's really a good kind of entry point for a new language if you're interested. So I'll put the link in the description so you could go to the bbc.com/Pidgin website, and then you can start your journey to learning Nigerian Pidgin. Okay. Oh, and 116 million or so people know Nigerian Pidgin. That's a lot more than the first language speakers of Nigerian Pidgin, which are, as I said, about 5 million. So there are 20 times more speakers of it as a second language, and that's because it facilitates communication in a country where there are many speakers of many, many different languages, and it forms a lingua franca for about 120 million people or so. So that's really cool. All right, well, let's ask the cards how we should think about communicating today and what they have to say about our work and lives. So, yellow lemons, blue dumplings, magenta noodles. Cards, tell us some things. Here we go. It's card 44. Map your own knowledge. To be licensed, London cab drivers need to know pretty much every twist and turn of the city. This learning is called the knowledge. So create your own personal knowledge. You can start with where you live or somewhere where you want to live and learn the histories and cultures and landscapes of that place, and then find new ways on how to act on that new knowledge of the place you're in or somewhere where you want to be. So give that a thought today, and I'll see you tomorrow on Life's Potluck Buffet.